Kia ora Tiwi, nau mai ki te whare wānanga o ai.
Kia mohio mai koe, e hara mātou I te mātanga, e hara hoki I te tākuta.
Anei mātou e whakapuaki nei I o mātou ngākau, I o mātou whakaaro, hei whakawātea I te ara kōrero,
E te ara wānanga, I tēnei mea, te ai.
Kia manawa nui mai, kia ngākau tūwhera mai ki tēnei kaupapa.
Me te kaumawaru tau te pakeke, me whakae rānei o mātua kia mātakitaki mai koe I tēnei hōtaka. Nau mai, tomo mai ki te whare o ai.
I remember the first time I ever watched porn was with my boyfriend in high school. And then all of a sudden they're having sex. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Everyone was given the task of sculpting their favourite sex position. Here I am, spread eagle on the
Okay, never have I ever had sex with multiple people at one time.
Like, what do you mean? Kuia mai rai e ngā iwi o te motu kia wānanga. Ai tātai, give me an ai. So we've got a bit of a cute show coming up. He tino hōtaka e whai ake nei. Hangai ana ki te tai kaupapa. Miharo rawa atu. Hui anō mo tēnei wā. He whakamahana te mahi. So we're going to warm up the juices. Get the juices flowing. With a bit of a kēmu. Ko te ingoa te kēmu. Ko karanga ngātahi. Ka whakawehea koutou ki ngā ropu e rua. Ko te tino whāinga kia karanga ngātahi I tētahi kupu, ne? And so I'm going to give you a word, and you and your partner, without communicating to each other, are going to have to try and think of a word that you can both say at the same time, ne? And I'm just going to clarify, it has to be the same word. So if one says penis and one says ure, ne? You got to say the exact same word, even though they mean the same thing. Nā reira, yeah, we're going to go rock, paper, scissors, and we're going to see who goes first. So, tānema, tēnā karawhiua. Kuti.
We should be a team.
Pepa. Oh, there it is. All right, okay. Kōrua. Ko te kupu kia kōrua. Here we go. Let me just open up my special book.
Hey.
Kari papa. Kari papa. Anal. Kari
okay.
papa. Anal kia kōrua.
3, 2, 1.
Mama.
Ass.
Oh.
Did you say mama? Wait, like mama or ngāwari mama, he ngāwari ki ngāwari.
Mama.
Oh, right, a fire, like fire. Oh, I was going to say, girl.
Yes, because what other kupu do you bring up?
She's like, yeah, oh, kari papa, oh, mama noi ho tērā. Kia kōrua, ko te kupu kia kōrua, moetoa. Moetoa, wet dream.
Toru, rua, tahi. Ejaculate.
Oh! Ejaculate and ure. Yeah, very similar. Very similar. You're on the same treina whakaro, ne? Te tumanako ia kua wera te tinana me te hinengaro anō hoki. Because we are about to get into some confessions. I'm going to hand it over now to, of course, Miss Stevie. She's got our confessions for today. So, pānui tia mai, sasi.
Ai, kia are mai o koutou taringa. Anei tā tātou whākinga I te rangi nei nā tētahi tangata e kimi ana I ētahi kupu āwhina.
Oh, okay.
So, this is our confession for today. Rebuilding a healthy relationship. To work on the relationship or not. The pātai is how can I make this relationship work with my partner after he's cheated? I made the call to stay. Why? Because growing up I always wanted what my mum and dad had. A long-lasting marriage built on trust and pure aroha. My husband has been working away and I felt in my puku that there was something different with him. I decided to check his phone while he was sleeping, and that feeling hit me when you know something bad is coming, but you also hope that it won't come true. Sure enough, I found photos and text messages to a wahine that we both know, and my heart sank. I went into absolute rage and lashed out at him. I was a bit crazy. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
He confessed, but said it only happened once. Trust has been broken and I can't seem to forgive and forget. I find that I am feeling so ugly and rejected, it absolutely hurts. I feel in my puku that I need to make this work and fight for our marriage. I have come to feel so angry, sour, and just a real bitch because I feel yucky inside. I want to make this work. I want to forgive for my own benefit because I just don't want this feeling. I am such a loyal person and can't understand why people cheat. What can I do to work on building myself back together, but also give some time and effort to rebuilding our trust? What should I be asking of him? I love him, I love our whānau and our life, so how can I move forward with this? Ka aroha ki aia.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit. And I think as the least experienced on our panel when it comes to relationships, the closest thing I've had is just the support and advice that I've had to offer my friends who have gone through the same situation as well. Because that story is very, similar. It's the same. It's common that kind of horopaki. And so I think, girl, just leave it. No, take those ones. I'm so that one because I'm like, no, if you do it once, you're gonna do it again. But toe boy. Tell me, talk to me. What is going through the male heterosexual brain when they're in a relationship? Give me perspective, please, because
Tērā pēr he whakaaro pessimis tēnei. Engari kōti. Kōti. Nā te mea, hey, it's probably not the first time. How can we trust them that it is? And I mea atua mō tōna māma me tōna papa, and well, if you wanted that relationship, was your dad cheating on your mum? You know, like you're not in that relationship, so maybe he fantasy care. And for me, I'm just that's over. I'm out of there. Yeah. Hey,
she answered it herself really when she said, I want to rebuild it because I've always wanted what my parents had, a loving, trusting relationship. And I think that answers itself. There's no trusting relationship. And so if you want that, look somewhere else, girl.
I think a lot of people cheating. Well, like I've been there in the past. And in the perspective of the person, like at the time, I thought I was being selfless for the other person involved. Like I thought I was like helping them, not like that. I actually did think that. Those were excuses I made up for myself at the time to make myself feel like I wasn't the evil person in that situation, knowing the whole time you are, and you're just making up shit excuses so that you can hurt someone else. When really, a healthy relationship doesn't jeopardize anybody's emotion. Yeah.
Taumihi, how would you feel if you're in the same situation?
I think āhua rere ke au, because kia kunei whakaro kei a koe te tikanga mehe mea ka timata anō koe, engari he nui tērā taumahatanga ka tau mai ki a koe. Ki te whakaro koe ka taia e koe te whakatika, te honohono anō i era taura, kei a koe tērā tikanga he oi anō, me kaha koe ki te ata kawe i tērā kaupapa i te mea, kaore kore he hoa au e whakaro ana tukuna ia, kia haere. He hoa anō au e mea ana, kia kaha koe ki te ata here anō i era taura. Engari, me timata anō ki a koe. Mehe mea hiahia ana koe ki te whakatika i tērā hononga au, me timata ki a koe. Hei aha te whakaro mana, timata ki a koe, te manaaki i a koe anō. Hei te wākua oti tērā wahanga, kei reira koe ka mohio, mehe mea ai e tika nā tāku kōwhiringa, kao me haere tonu au, ki te tai huarahi hau, i te mea nou anō tērā whakaro, mau anō tērā e kawe. So, ahua kaha au i te mea, he ahua pērā hoki taku whakaro, e hiahia ana au kia hono au ki tēnei tāngata moaki tonu atu, ka whaia e au tērā moimoia, a haere ake nei. Aha kua ana mahi he pēr, there's a limit, and there's a point where you get to, engari, he oi anō, mehe mei whakaro ana au ai ka taia au, kei au tērā mana, but kei te rongo au ki tāna mamai, because mehe mea e mohi ana koe, kua rongo koe, ai he mahi whakaparahako i tā mai wa hononga, kei te tino mamai aia, he oi anō me āta tau anō tō wairua kia hoki anō ki tērā wāhi tōna taha. I te mea, mehe maka hoki koe ki reira karano koe kia tau, kua kawa tō ngākau, ka kawa tērā hononga, kāre pai te hononga. So, girl, if you think you got it, you have to be strong to carry on, to push through and to heal yourself, because if you don't go back into it healed, you're just going to make things worse for yourself and for him.
Now look, we've got another bit of a part to our schedule today, because to speak more about mana enhancing and of course tērā tūmomo hononga whai mana is actually a very, very amazing wahine who goes by the name of Kiri. So we're going to try oh yes! Ka tūhono mai tēnei mārei kura, and of course really what we're wanting to see this wahine right here. If you don't already know her, outside of all of her mahi achievements, she's actually one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram.
Yes.
The realities, the perspectives that come through really do challenge. But Kiri, kia ora, Kiri.
Tēnā koutou.
Rawete tūtaki a koe. Thank you so much for finding time for our wānanga ai today. And of course, we're talking about relationships. What is a healthy relationship and all of those kind of aspects. But before we do go into there, outside of your bio, my friend, ko waia Kiri?
Well, tēnā tātou katoa e te whānau. Ko Kiri Tamihere Waititi ahau, ki tētahi oku, ki tētahi taha oku no Ngāti Parau, no te whakatohe anō hoki, ki te taha o taku māma no roto mai o Ngāpuhi, no Ngātirangi, roto Ngāwha. He māma ahau, tokori māku tamariki. I'm a slow learner. I also happen to have a husband who should be the sixth of my and just of last week we celebrated 14 years marriage, and i tēnei taurua te kaumārua tau māua e hono ana. I also happen to be I trained as a clinical psychologist at the University of Auckland and do heaps of mahi with whānau orai and supporting our whānau and relationships and all sorts.
Well, rawe tēnā, and especially going off the 14 years marriage and the 20 plus beyond that, we're really trying to dissect what a healthy relationship is. And I'm going to be honest, that's actually goals. The whānau, the hononga, the relationship that you both share as well. So I guess my kind of first question is, what to you is a healthy relationship, and how can we kind of dissect all of that?
Yeah, kia ora, pātai pai tēnā. And I think the issue for many of us is that we often see, we look at our relationships in comparison with others. So moku ake, a healthy relationship looks like one that has scraps and that has disagreements and conflict.
Yes.
But that resolves them in ways that are assertive. So there are different types of communication. There's a passive type of communication, there's an assertive type, and there's also an aggressive type. So the most healthiest relationships that I see are ones that resolve any raru that they have in an assertive way. And that's not to say that we go through bits of those. Over 22 years, man, I've had my times of aggression. I've had times where I've just about tried to punch and all those things and do all of that, but we mature through our relationships. So moku ake, being super assertive in terms of your boundaries. It's one, well, relationships look different nowadays, So we have the polyamory stuff coming in. So for me, it's also one where both or all people involved in the relationships are super committed to working through whatever issues they have, and committed to doing better by one another. Relationships can't flourish if you only got one person doing the mahi, so that's super important too.
Oh, I love that. Tuia hoki ki tērā, Kiri, e wānanga na mātou I ngā āhuatanga whakapai ake. So how we're nurturing our relationships. One of the points that Stevie brought up was hononga whai mana, and that being kind of a good title for healthy relationships, because of course it's all about enhancing each other's mana. So I think because we've kind of been dissecting how to recover relationships and rebuild relationships if they do go through that kind of turmoil or, you know, through those, like you said, those scraps and those moments of whakapaiake lessons, we'll call them. So what are some of those kind of tips? He hae tahi kōrero hāpai mō te hunga e ngana ana kia hono anō tērā o ngā herenga?
Ai, ka pai, pai tēnā. I think the first thing we need to do is actually understand what the natural cycle of relationships look like. And so when we first step foot into a relationship, we're already coming in pre-programmed, if you will.
Yes.
And we come in with our own whakapapa as individuals, our parents, the way our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, the tikanga that our whānau and our tūranga whānau hold. We come with our own values and behaviours, emotions, experiences, goals, ideas, our wants, our needs, and our own trauma, right? So we're coming in on our own with all of that whakapapa and all of that baggage into a relationship with somebody else. And so what happens is that we unconsciously choose our partners, based on all of these things, including the modeling of our own parents. So regardless of how we like to see ourselves as separate individuals when we enter into a relationship, we are the product of what we have experienced. So looking at our nannies and papas and their relationships, looking at our parents and our aunties and uncles and their relationships have influenced what we look like and what we're attracted to. And I think the key phases to really be mindful of is that when we first enter into a relationship, there's a romantic phase. And so we all know that phase. Ko te mea kei wainganui kei te arahi haere ngā mahi I ngā wā katoa. And the romantic phase of relationships lasts anywhere between 6 to 18 months. And our brain actually has a chemical reaction in the phase of romantic relationships, and the part of the brain that is highlighted in that phase is the same part of the brain that is highlighted when we get high on drugs. So the part of the brain in romantic relationships, they talk about it as nature's euphoria. When we're in that first initial phase, everyone's having sex all the time, 10 times a day. You're wearing rose-tinted glasses, and there's nothing more beautiful than the specimen sitting in front of me right now. Everyone's hornak all the time. It is what it is, right? And that's what we see on the movies, and that's what we see on YouTube, and that's what we see in terms of the model of a relationship. But that never ever lasts, because just like a high does with drugs, it wears off. And so it's the part of our brain that can't sustain that type of euphoria for such a long time. So once we move from that romantic phase, and you'll see often relationships break up between that 6 to 18 months because it ends. And then people think, often I've worked with a lot of whānau who say, you know, I'm bored. It's not what it used to be like anymore. And so what happens then is we move into a phase called the power struggle, right? And those of us who have been in relationships for a long time, we know. And this is when those rose-colored glasses drop off real fast. And all of a sudden, we know that they fart. We didn't know that they fart, or they woke up looking like that in the morning, or whatever, you know. So here katoa, and that's because the euphoria is not there anymore, and we really start to see our partner for who they are. In all of their glory, good and bad. And so this is the time where we start to really look at, okay, are we going to move further past this phase? This is when the conversations start to happen about moving in together, our values. And that's when we start to see whether the partner that we're working with, that we're living with, being with, is starting to live by certain values that are in alignment with ours. And then once that happens, this is often where relationships kawehe, right? Because it's we've gone from the super, super high to what the fuck have I got myself into? And it just doesn't look like what it did last month. Like, why is that? And then, you know, this is the getting so mad because there's towels on the ground,
Yeah, don't even get me started about the towels.
So the phase beyond that is when we're having these kaha, kei te kaha tau patu, kei te kaha whawhai ngā wā katoa, when we come together and think, fuck, we're going to have to work this out. If we're going to try this, we need to work this out and have a really good kōrero. Now that phase is the commitment phase, committing to working past and working through the power struggles. Because as I said, we've got two people coming with two very different whakapapa, in all senses of the word. So our whānau, and that's another issue that we have to contend with. Because, you know, when you're Māori, you don't just marry one person, it's the whole whānau that comes with it. And so there's all these things and values we're having to come in with our own separate values, the way we were parented by our own parents. And then, so there could be a baby now in this time. So it's how do we rejig all of our values to start creating our own, and that's an incredibly difficult time for couples to go through, and it's huge. And so once there's a decision made that we're going to commit together to be doing the mahi, that's when the work occurs, right? So this is when we need to start really having conversations about what it is in my own experience, in my own life, that is impacting and contributing to some of the scraps that we're having. What is it that has happened in my past that reminds me of what you do? So it's not necessarily what you do, but some of these behaviors are really unacceptable for me because it's what I experienced as a child in this way. So it's being able to really communicate effectively your needs and helping the other person understand the whakapapa of those needs. And then once we can get through that, that's when we end up at a mature love. Now, I'll tell you right now, after 22 years, I'm in and out of the mature love, commitment, and power struggle. So, hey, we go through these all the time, but koina te ahua o wēnei momo hononga ne. And it's never ever bliss, it's never ever happiness. And I hate to break it to everybody, but that romantic phase never ever comes back. But it's a different sort of love. It's a mature love, right? That's of contentment and one where you can grow together. So I think understanding the cycles of relationships, because we're really buggered up by what we see on TV and what we see on socials. And it's actually not true how relationships are always so blissful. And don't get me wrong, they are, but it's a different type of bliss, right? So that was my long-winded tip.
I love that. I want to have you around in my pocket everywhere. That mātauranga. And I don't even have a relationship. But when I do, I'm going to accredit all of its success to you, honestly. Te one has a bit of a partai as well.
So we had a conversation earlier where Tahu was speaking about tāne a little bit different to our wahine. Do you have any stories or any experiences working with tāne, and is there anything that's actually
psychologically
different than wahine?
Specifically,
let's be honest.
Because we talk about like, oh, boys will be boys, and I hate that statement. Boys will be boys, because I'm like, yeah, but that's such an old statement. Our boys today are not the same. But yeah, is there anything logical happening in our tāne?
Well, I could give you my personal opinion.
Those are my favourites. Those are my favourites.
No, but hey, that's a really cool partai. And I think the boys will be boys things is a cop-out. I don't agree with that at all. I do agree that we have very different I do agree that we tick very differently, but I also think that colonization has influenced that quite a lot. So if we look at the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus type of thing, what we're getting is a type of man and a type of woman that has been around forever and is just shaping now the way we see women and men in terms of their roles and functions in relationships. And I think if we can look back to, our own hitori, in it's not even history, our own traditions, we knew that our men were the most softest men. They were the caretakers. They were the ones that looked after our babies. They were the ones that cooked and fed our wahine. So if we looked at the boys will be boys, that doesn't necessarily translate into what we know of our men pre-colonization. So I think colonization has had some massively damaging effects in the way we see our roles as men and the way we see our roles as women. So I don't necessarily agree. And I think the only psychological differences come from a real westernized view about how men should be and how women should be. And I'd really like for us to start reshaping that and looking at actually my husband, right, is the softest fella on the planet and has but right, in saying that, and I think all men, probably most men can attest to this, you know, when you step foot outside, you almost have to put this armor on to become something different. And I think I have a lot of love at the moment for our tāne in Aotearoa right now, because I feel like there is such a massive struggle to be something that we weren't actually designed to be in the first place. We were never ever, our men never ever had to step and put a pretend armor on that they weren't soft, because they were, but they could be soft and go and slash someone in battle at the same time. You know, so there's the duality and the dichotomy of being able to have a soft, beautiful, gentle man, but also one that is a warrior too. And so I'm not sure whether that answers your question, but what I have found in relationships generally, tāne mai, wahine mai, the most important thing is in a relationship is that you must try and look at your partner's views from their perspective. We unconsciously try and fight somebody and try and talking through an issue with our own lens, and then the other and what they're trying to tell us just doesn't make sense because we're not looking at it from their perspective. So every raru that we all have makes absolute sense from the way we're looking at it. And it's almost like if you're looking at my phone here, it's how do we cross the bridge? So you're seeing this green part of my phone with the cameras. I'm seeing that. And it's not until you can actually come around to my side to really see what I'm looking at. And it's the same with relationships. And that's comes with vulnerability, like being vulnerable with one another and actually putting down my guard, because I've got a big ass ego. Okay. I want to come and really look at it from your perspective and try and understand the logic of your emotion and the logic of your behavior. And in order for me to understand that, I need to know the whakapapa of your whānau and the way you were treated being raised and your experiences growing up and what that was like for you. That's when I'm going to understand. And it doesn't mean that I'm accepting your behavior, but I'm more compassionate towards why it's come about. And then we can have a conversation about, okay, what you're doing there, I don't like it. I'm not going to accept it regardless of how you've learnt that behaviour. So how are we going to meet in the middle to help it change?
Tino a tāhua tērā ei. Kua tino taka te kapa nā o kōrero mō tērā wāhanga honeymoon phase, te kitenga mai tōtaha me tāna taha, me te mārama e rua ngā taha ki ngā take katoa, a me āta wāna ngā taua ki te whakataua noi tēnei, mā te āta titiro, mā te āta mātai i ngā taha e rua. E pai ai te whakatau i tēnei take i tēnei raru. Tino a tāhua te rongo i era kōrero hoki, because I feel like I've just, you know, had a brain fart beforehand, and then now it's all clear, so I understand a little bit more. And it's probably going to help us a lot, hopefully. Hopefully we just maintain this kōrero too, because tino a tāhua.
And I suppose one of the last things I want to say is I always say conflict is healing trying to happen. And so he mea tino nunui rawa te taupatupatu. That's where all of our learning happens. I roto I te pauri, te maramatanga I whiti ana, and that's where all of our oranga comes, is through those struggles, and that's how we grow together.
Ai.
Yes. I think in just going on from that, just
I thought you were cutting me off.
Oh, no. Oh, we want you to stay here all day, girl. We're never going to let you go.
One more.
Pātai whakamutunga. I think in going on, talking about, you know, having that time to understand each other and really building on your relationship. I think kei te mohi o tātou he nui tai mahi, he nui te mahi o tō hoa rangatira. Heoi, pehea kōrua e whai wā kia noho tahi.
Oh my God, that was my question.
Oh my God! This is what I'm thinking.
Synergy.
Yeah. We should have been on the same team.
Yeah, because you guys would be...
Yes, you know,
Sure.
how do you manage
How do you find
time to
time?
find, to make
Scheduling.
that time?
Yes, scheduling.
Do you have a calendar?
How do you do it?
Yeah, no, straight up, scheduling is really important for everything, including what you fellas were talking about before. But I think actually we have to have constant conversations about this, Rawiri and I. And so what's worse, aside from we're both really busy, we work together. And so we want to choke each other every other day most of the time. But so we've had to sit down and get very clear around our work boundaries, around, you know, when work stops, when it finishes, when our relationship starts. So, for example, we turn up to Parliament. I'll just give an example. In Parliament, we put our mahi hats on. So we don't even refer to each other as babe, whatever. We're there to do the mahi, and as soon as we walk out, we try our hardest to get rid of that. And we've implemented our own tikanga. So kamutu no te mahi, we'll just go and have a shower, you know, ringihia ngā hara o te rā me ngā mahi, so we can come back and be husband and wife and papai mama to our kids. But it's an ongoing battle, I will say that. It's an ongoing battle how to have time together. And just this morning, I told him I was coming onto this actually, and we were just talking about how we can start together having some couple time, because sometimes we get confused between couple time that is work time, which is not actually couple time. And so we've been really intentional about, and we have to be, because otherwise we fight all the time, and we fight about mahi, and it takes over our world. So Rawiri and I have to be super intentional behind you know, going out to have little date nights, going out, even if it's just going up to the shop by ourselves, or just we go to get a bread and we come back 2 hours later because we're having a coffee or a kōrero or something. Just booking in time to just catch up about what everyone's been doing and spending some time together. So it's really hard. Sometimes we miss the mark, like we super miss the mark. And that's when I know we haven't prioritize time together, is when we're starting to get bitchy with one another, because it happens. Yeah, but it's an ongoing struggle, and calendaring and scheduling is really important for us.
Well, whatever you are doing, Kiri, honestly, carry on doing it, because we have found so much maramatanga and lessons just within the small little session that we got here. So hopefully we can we order like little private sessions, because I think I need this. Honestly, I really do. Hoi anō, me tuku i a koe, kia hoki anō ki tō ipo. Ai hoi anō e te māraikura e Kiri, kua tami herengia o whakaaro ki tēnei o ngā wānanga. Tēnei rā te mihi mai te whānau o ai, kia koutou hoki. Me te mihi anō ki te rangatira rā kia Rawiri, kia Kōruatahi me te whānau whānui katoa. Tēnei te mihi atu kia Kōrua. Kia kite, kia pai te rā. Thank you so much.